Hi, I'm Gruff, a cute little bear girl with the voice of a cartoon uncle. And if you spent even a moderate amount of time on Twitter, you probably noticed that somehow Gwen posting is back. Gwen posting. You know, when people infest that website with images of Gwen Tennyson, and not just any Gwen Tennyson, but one very specific version of her. The OG. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Okay, listen. Today we're going to talk about Gwen Tennyson. We're going to have a mature and productive discussion about a cartoon character, and you're going to save your judgment for the comments after you've watched the entire video and understood my perspective on the subject. Deal?
Excellent!
So, Gwen Tennyson, the internet's favorite LOLI. Even years after the end of her original series, she remains a character with the same legion of fans across the ages. Of course, the character never really disappeared from the public eye, so to speak. She got new incarnations in subsequent series, received more screen time and story arcs of her own, but no matter what, she was never quite as revered as in her OG incarnation. But okay, before we talk about how obsessed the internet is with the little redhead that could, let's talk about the show from which she was spawned, Ben 10. Ben 10 premiered on Cartoon Network in 2005. The series was created by the Man of Action group, made up of numerous comic book artists such as Joe Casey, Stephen T. Seagal, and Duncan Rouleau. Some of the group's other endeavors are Generator Rex and Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the best cartoon ever made with Marvel characters, if you ask me. Much to Ben's chagrin, this won't be a boys-only trip, doing the sort of things penis owners do while in vacation, like going to Tijuana, getting their drinks spiked while watching a donkey show, and waking up in a bathtub full of ice with an incision in their backs. No, because Max and Ben would be joined by Gwen, our hero's cousin.
Arara.
Unfortunately for Ben, his cousin isn't a 22-year-old college girl willing to teach him the secrets of life, family, and love. This cartoon was created by a group of men, not a 55-year-old wino spinster. No, Ben's cousin is Gwen, a sassy, tomboyish 10-year-old brat who gives Ben just as much attitude as he dishes out. One night, Ben found a bracelet from outer space inside a smoking crater. Since he's 10 years old and a complete idiot, he promptly slapped it into his wrist without stopping for even a second to consider that he might be absorbing more radiation than a Fallout 4 protagonist when romancing Hancock. His grandfather, who secretly worked for an alien monitoring organization, should have taught him, "Son, if you find a space artifact inside a smoking crater, do not put it on your arm or any other parts of your body, no matter how good it makes you feel." But then again, Grandpa Max was apparently quite fond of sticking his caramel into any cosmic horror that as much as winked at him, so he isn't exactly the best source of wisdom on this matter. Either way, Ben discovers that the space bracelet allows him to transform into specimens from various alien species, ranging from a 4-armed space bodybuilder to a guy who can't own wooden furniture to something that would definitely be plastered across the covers of those romance novels women love. With his new powers, he starts playing superhero, and playing is the right word. Ben isn't exactly responsible with his powers and ends up royally screwing things up countless times while learning what actually makes someone a hero. And throughout the entire trip, there's Gwen, to annoy the hell out of him, but also serve as his rock whenever he needs one. Their dynamic is sibling-like, with each of them being simultaneously the other's worst enemy and best friend. They bicker, annoy, roast each other, but when push comes to shove, they always have each other's backs. Gwen and Ben have some genuinely sweet moments together, like when she teaches him how to dance so he can impress a girl, or when Ben cheers his cousin up after an elite school rejects her application. In any other series, these moments would be pure ship fuel, and here they kinda were. Gwen wasn't originally planned to be Ben's cousin, but rather a friend who traveled with him and Max and would eventually become his love interest. The creators changed the relationship between the characters because they realized that it would be weird for a girl who wasn't related to them to travel cross-country with a boy and his grandpa. I mean, the relationship changed, but the shipping elements remained somewhat. So much so that it was apparently a recurring joke among the show's staff that Ben and Gwen would be playing doctor whenever Grandpa Max wasn't looking. And here's Tara Strong, the official voice of Ben, making a Twitter post about getting busy within the family. And lest we forget, Alien Force, one of the sequels to the original show, had Ben fall for an alien who was basically a blonde copy of Gwen. Also, there's the theory that that's why they uglified Gwen and gave her a boyfriend, Kevin, in every following series. It was an attempt to stop the shipping that existed among fans between her and Ben. It didn't work. And here you thought that the people on Newsgrounds were the first to push that idea online. Gwen eventually discovered that she had magical powers, because of course she did, and learned that she was part Anodite, a species of aliens that control light and energy projection. Because Grandpa Max secretly married a radioactive bimbo from space and Gwen inherited her grandmother's powers. Eventually, she was replaced by a blue monkey in a bodysuit, went to college, and turned into a girl who looked like she smelled so strongly of weed you could get high from seeing her on TV. I mean, just look at her. You know she single-handedly keeps the entire Florida cannabis operation in business. Ben 10 was Cartoon Network's last major hit before it became the channel for depressed millennials who think they're incredibly profound because they watch a show about cosmic lesbians, post-apocalyptic lesbians, or just lesbians. As such, it spawned numerous spin-offs, such as Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, which was developed by legendary Dwayne McDuffie and Glenn Murakami, and is unironically one of the best things Cartoon Network has ever produced. Ben 10 Omniverse, the series with character designs by Derek J. Wyatt, where every female character has boobs that look like Spock's ears, and the most recent reboot, which we all pretend doesn't exist. Just like Teen Titans Go. There is no Teen Titans Go in Ba Sing Se. And throughout all of this, Gwen was there, and the internet loves her. Specifically, the first version of her. Yeah, the OG version of Gwen is the favorite of people who spend more time online than they do in real life. Whenever the subject of Ben 10 comes up, Gwen inevitably becomes the focus of the conversation. Every single day, thousands of new fanarts of her pop across the internet. The vast majority of them age her up and depict her as being over 18, and even more of those works put her in 18+ situations because it's the internet. Hello? We have chatbots built around her personality and online creators who make no effort to hide how much they're in love with her and would absolutely make kittens with her if they could. Which brings us to the question. Why the hell is the internet so obsessed with the original version of Gwen?
Because everyone is a PDF file!
Okay, crazy internet person who accuses people of crimes for watching cartoons. That would be the simplest answer, but the simplest answer isn't always the correct one. So let's take a deeper look. Okay, Gwen is a cartoon character, and people developing crushes on her is actually much more common than you might think. Common enough, in fact, that I made an entire video on the subject, which earned me 2 Oscars. Go watch it! After you finish watching this one, of course. And leave a comment, and like, and subscribe to my channel. Yes, you do all that. For now, I'll give you the TLDR. When an author creates a character, they put a piece of themselves into it. The creation is often inspired by people the author has known or is an amalgamation of values and personality traits that are important to the writer's worldview. When you look at Spider-Man, Superman, or Goku, you are not just looking at a drawing, you're looking at a piece of someone's soul. In the same way that we relate to people in real life and grow closer to or more distant from them depending on what each person brings to the table, the same applies to fictional characters. You gravitate towards the ones who resonate with you because the personality of the individual who created them resonates with you as well. Remember your crew in Starfield? Of course not! Those were some of the blandest, most empty characters ever to star in a video game, probably created by a corporate board that made them as inoffensive and boring as possible so nobody could get upset. Nothing on that godforsaken game resonated with anyone. On the other hand, we have characters like the cast of Cyberpunk 2077, packed with memorable and unique beings who stay with us long after we've left Night City behind. Except Riverward. Oh, I hate him! A good character leaves an impression on the audience, and quite often when someone ends up developing a crush on a fictional being, their waifu, that says something about them. Someone who falls in love with Frieren probably likes petite, introverted girls. Someone who falls in love with Marin Kitagawa probably likes energetic, cheerful people. And someone who falls in love with Ares Greyrat is attracted to feral girls who would beat someone to the point of a seizure if given the opportunity, which is both terrifying and exciting. And to the girls listening to this and laughing, calling it incel shit, ladies, I remember how thirsty you got over Severus Snape, Edward Cullen, the entire male cast of Boku no Hero Academy, and more recently, the goddamn Minotaur. Don't act like you don't lust for fictional characters too, because you people all live in glass houses. Okay, so that sums it up. People fall in love with the personality traits and values of a character, ergo with the character in question. But why is everyone in love with the original Gwen? We have adult versions of her. Why isn't the internet obsessed with those? I believe there is more than one reason. The first is that OG Gwen appeared at a very specific point in many people's lives, the transition from childhood into adolescence. That period when a boy is still playing with his dolls, action figures, when he still thinks super soakers are awesome and wet farts are funny, but it's starting to look at the girls around him a little differently. And for many introverted boys who spent more time with cartoons and video games than with other kids, those feelings end up being transferred onto fictional characters. In this case, Gwen Tennyson. When you think about it, the entire premise of Ben 10 is the perfect setup for a coming-of-age story about first love. A boy travels across the country with his grandfather, who is still an authority figure in his life but much more flexible than his parents, giving him more freedom. Alongside them is a cute girl with a fun personality whom he spends practically 24 hours a day with. And just as he begins to realize he's becoming interested in girls, it's the image of his most constant companion that appears in his mind throughout that period of discovery. It's the perfect fantasy for kids watching the show. They project themselves in Ben's place, and in their mind, Gwen becomes their first virtual girlfriend.
Project themselves into Ben? That's incest! Disgusting!
They project themselves in Ben's place. They become Ben, but they are still themselves in their mind and not related to Gwen. Do I have to explain everything? Also, what if I told you that a lot of boys have crushes on their cousins while growing up and simply grow out of those feelings over time? There's nothing wrong or unusual about that. It's simply part of the adventure of growing up. Remember when we could talk about these things without online pearl clutchers trying to get us fired from our jobs? Good times, man. And I'll tell you something else. Gwen becoming the girlfriend of an entire generation of boys isn't unique. Countless cartoon characters have taken over the collective consciousness and become absolute internet divas precisely because they entered boys' lives at exactly the right moment. XJ9, Frankie Foster, Wendy Corduroy, Raven, Shigo, Alex, Sam, and Clover from Totally Spies, The Miraculous Ladybug, The Hex Girls, and so many others. All of their shows ended years ago, and those characters are still beloved online. And that's because millions of boys had their sexual awakening while watching these cartoons. As a result, these characters became intrinsically associated with the memories of that period of their lives. And I'm going somewhere very scary now. Take the average 30-something furry on Discord and you'll find out that they grew up with characters like Sally Acorn, Lola Bunny, and Gadget Hackwrench. Yeah, now you understand where those guys came from.
But there are adult versions of Gwen. Why does the average internet degenerate only go for the original LOLI version?
Yeah, well, this is my second point. All those grown-up versions of the character, those aren't Gwen. Or at least they aren't the Gwen people feel the strongest attachment to. Yeah, I know that sounds weird, but hear me out. Let's use Optimus Prime as an example, and I swear this isn't some insane tangent.
Gwen, you have to treat a car like you treat a woman.
Go on.
I grew up with the G1 Optimus Prime, the original, the classic, the one who said,
Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost.
Before beating the ever-loving Energon out of the entire Decepticon army by himself. He was my childhood hero, as big in my mind as Spider-Man, Batman, or that old guy at the arcade who always let me play for free and kept trying to convince me to go to the back of the store where there was candy and nobody could hear me scream. The point is, G1 Optimus was only the first version of the character. We've had dozens of iterations of him in anime, comics, other Western-produced series, live-action movies, but none of them are the character I grew up with. Take Michael Bay's Optimus, for example. He is the leader of the Autobots, he transforms into a truck and has Peter Cullen's voice, but he isn't my Optimus. G1 Optimus is a father figure in truck form, strong, brave, and also kind, wise, and compassionate. Michael Bay's Optimus is always angry and ripping people's faces off. Technically, he is the same character, but he is so far removed from the original version that he might as well be an entirely different one. Same thing happens with Gwen. The Alien Force version has the same name, the same powers, and the same relationship with Ben, but she barely resembles the original character at all. Instead of the sassy, stubborn, tomboyish little brat, we get girl. She's basically PG-rated Adam Eve, with vaguely defined energy powers whose primary purpose seems to be making shields most of the time. To be fair, this is a problem that affects most of the Alien Force cast and its subsequent sequels. Most of the characters are bland as hell, with the sole exception being Kevin, who underwent the biggest evolution from one series to the next. Ben 10 Alien Force is fantastic despite that. Go watch it.
But it's weird for people to like the original Gwen. She's a child. Anyone who likes her has problems.
But that's how first crushes work. The person you had a crush on gets frozen in time forever inside your memories. Okay, let's paint a scenario. Imagine you had a childhood friend called Ramona. No. That name is cursed and was responsible for destroying an entire generation of women. Let's call your friend Anne. Anne was your best friend, you did everything together, you played together, studied together, enjoyed video games together, you couldn't imagine your life without her. Until one day, her family suddenly moved away. They disappeared in the middle of the night because her father was running away from low on sharks and you didn't even get a chance to say goodbye. Now, whenever you think about Anne, your mind is flooded with that bittersweet feeling of longing and loss, and you remember her exactly as she was the last time you saw her. Your mind doesn't conjure up a 52-year-old version of her to match your current age. You associate her with the period of your life when you knew her, eternally frozen as the girl who captured your heart all those years ago. And this applies to every stage of life. The girl you met when you were 20 in college will always be remembered that age, because every person we meet becomes tied to a particular stage of our lives if we lose contact with them. And Gwen, basically the audience that grew up with her, lost contact with the character. The later versions never managed to capture the essence of the original, so it's almost as if she disappeared and then became frozen as the loud 10-year-old girl so many people fell in love with. And there you have it. There's nothing creepy about so many people still being fond of Gwen Tennyson in her original 10-year-old incarnation while ignoring the later versions. That attachment to the character is nothing more than an attachment to the memory of a first animated crush, a childhood memory, a memory of better times eternally associated with that wonderfully confusing period when we're growing up and discovering the world and ourselves. So yeah, it's okay to like Gwen. I'd go even further and say it's an incredibly innocent thing. Because she's a cartoon. She isn't real. Despite being created with very real traits and qualities in mind, that doesn't change the fact that she doesn't exist. It's sad that in the year of our Lord 2026, this still needs to be explained, but here we are. Thing is, we have crazy people online nowadays. Actually, we've always had them. They were just corralled on Tumblr. Once that platform collapsed, they metastasized across the internet. Today they exist in droves on platforms like Twitter. No, Elon, I will never call it X. Suck my balls. They spend their time making other people's lives miserable through an endless spiral of purity that they themselves would never survive if subjected to. The favorite pastime of this army of unemployable people is harassing others based on the kind of fiction they consume, then labeling them with the worst things imaginable, as if liking a specific anime or video game were proof that you are a career criminal. You like Frieren? Well, did you know the series is fascist and promotes racial supremacy? You play Stellar Blade? How dare you! Women are literally being killed because of this game. You liked Pragmata? Ugh! The FBI should investigate your hard drives. Truth is, these people don't actually care about any of this. They don't care about fighting social problems. They don't care about protecting women or children. They want power. And whenever they attack someone online, their goal is to make that person grovel and beg for forgiveness for their sin. If they attack someone for liking Gwen, understand that the problem isn't Gwen, it's the person they are attacking. They decide that someone is a valid target, and then they dig through that person's life looking for something, anything they can use to destroy them. And if they can't find anything, they'll make something up. Being accused of horrible things for liking Gwen Tennyson or any other fictional character is the modern equivalent of the moral panic caused by Mortal Kombat when an entire generation of boomers, and yes, I am using that term correctly here, firmly believed that Sub-Zero and Scorpion were training every child in the 1990s to become hitmen for Tony Soprano. Difference is, back then the moral panic was caused by old people terrified with technology. Today is caused by young people terrified with the fact that others might have different opinions than them. And if none of that convinced you, here's my final argument. Did you call the cops when you saw Frieza kill Krillin? No, because you knew it was fiction and that no actual murder had taken place. You can stop being crazy and understand that when people manifest their passion about Gwen, no real person is being harmed. In fact, there are countless people who genuinely enjoy hurting children online and don't even bother hiding it. Quite the opposite. They talk about it openly and proudly. If the self-proclaimed enlightened people of the internet actually wanted to fight abuse, they wouldn't be worried about the rights of cartoon characters. But they don't. They just want to take your toys, break them in front of you, and label you as someone deserving of it. But hey, that's all for today. Sorry about the angry final rant, but I needed to vent. Hope I didn't scare any of you. But now I want to know about you guys. Did you have a waifu or husbando from a cartoon or video game you grew up with? Do you still love that character? Let me know in the comments. And if you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. It means the world to me. I'll see you again very, very soon. Until then, take care of yourselves and everyone you love. Cheers!